It is Bam Adebayo's 28th birthday. This is the leader of this franchise, the organization. And before we get today's show started, I want to show him some love because he is turning 28 and he's already got a Hall of Fame-esque resume. He is a 3-time NBA All-Star. He has been on the NBA All-Defense team 5 times in his career, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and he is already top 5 in points, rebounds, and assists in Miami Heat history. So it's safe to say if he ends his career in Miami, he is going to be number 1 in rebounds, definitely probably top 2 in assists, and probably top 2, 3 in points as well. Adebayo is off to a heck of a start in his career. So I want to show him some love. Show the captain of the Heat love. Spam HBDs for his birthday down in the comment section. And with that being said, let's get today's show started. I am Nic Rohloff. This is the Heat Report by Chat Sports. And speaking of Bam Adebayo, this is his show, his birthday, and the idea of him potentially recruiting Luka Doncic to the Miami Heat is something that we have to talk about here because it has sparked a lot of speculation online. They have been hanging out very consistently over the past week overseas in Europe. You see them dapping up there. They've been pictured many times together. And a lot of people are probably going to ask, well, why are Luka Doncic and Bam Adebayo together? Well, there is a very simple answer to all of this, but they have been spending a lot of time together. Luka and Bam are both Jordan brand ambassadors. So the Jordan brand is having some of their top players go on a brand tour in Europe, just partying, showing off, just socializing, and well, those two are two of the top NBA players represented by Jordan. So they are together, just hanging out, partying it up. And this now sparked a lot of speculation on, well, are these two conversing on what a potential partnership and duo would look like? And I'll say this, folks, absolute cinema. A Bam and Luka duo would just be unbelievably good. Like, you think about what player Bam Adebayo could benefit the most from playing with, it would be an offensive juggernaut like Luka Doncic. You talk about what type of player that Luka Doncic would benefit the most from playing with, it is the best, most versatile defensive wing / forward in the NBA that can also rim run and catch lobs like Bam Adebayo. These two would just be such a perfect match, and it would just be awesome to see them playing together in the 305. And it is actually possible, which is why we're talking about it. If it was impossible, we wouldn't discuss it. If he was still in Dallas, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. But now that he was traded to LA, a team that he did not choose to go to, it was just thrown out of nowhere. Well, there is a chance that he could opt out of his contract after this season because his 2026 contract is a player option. So he could opt out of that, say, I don't like where this franchise is going. I am not sure I want to extend with the Lakers. He could become an unrestricted free agent where every team in the NBA could then bid for his services by offering him the max, and he would have his choice of teams. Make sure you are subscribed because we're going to continue to bring you daily content, and any piece of Miami Heat news or rumors out there, we will have you covered. 23 away from 24,200. Let's get there on today's show. When you talk about Luka Doncic and possibly extending versus not extending, you really have to focus on this key date. The date, August 2nd. Why is it August 2nd? I don't know, but that is when Luka is extension eligible. I don't get why the NBA has these little caveats of like windows of extensions. Same thing with Tyler Hero. Like, Tyler Hero can extend between October 1st and October 20th. If he doesn't sign an extension between that time frame, well, he can't sign one until the following offseason. Well, August 2nd is when Luka becomes eligible to sign a 4-year, $228 million extension with the Los Angeles Lakers. And it is not a foregone conclusion that Luka will ultimately do that. Brian Windhorst on the situation. If Luka doesn't sign the extension, he could become a free agent next summer when there's going to be 10-plus teams with cap space. If he does not sign, you will see teams begin to open up maneuvers to try to chase Luka Doncic in free agency. And Miami will absolutely be one of those teams. That is no surprise. You go back to January and February, one of the main reasons why it was reported that the Heat did not want to take back a contract in a Jimmy Butler trade that went into the 26-27 offseason is because they wanted to keep the cap space open for that free agency period, eyeing specifically Luka Doncic, but there are also other players like De'Aaron Fox that are going to potentially be unrestricted free agents. So Miami has been trying to keep a max slot open in free agency, and for good reason, but as we know, it is very rare that players come available on free agent market like this. The happened last year with Paul George, but look at how that turned out. When you find a guy that is an all-star, all-NBA caliber player in their mid to late 20s, they just don't hit free agency very often at all. And if you're asking me on the situation, I think it's a 10% chance Luka doesn't extend. And even if he doesn't extend, which is in that 10% chance, there is still a chance he doesn't opt out when he just is going to play one more year with Los Angeles and then become an unrestricted free agent in 2027 or sign an extension the following offseason. To me, in talking with Jeffrey Cooperstein here, who obviously knows Luka Doncic very well, he covers the Mavs here. He believes that Luka will sign a smaller extension and then keep his options open for another supermax 2 or 3 years down the line. That is kind of where I think things may head as well. But it is very unlikely Luka ultimately becomes a free agent. But if he did, Miami is going to certainly be a team that has the ear of Doncic because of his relationship with Bam and Luka's fondness of the Heat organization. But I want you to predict this for me. Will Luka Doncic extend with the Lakers this offseason? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I think he will, but let me know your thoughts. Now, when we showed that quote from Brian Windhorst earlier about how there would be 10-plus teams lining up if Luka doesn't sign an extension, Windy also added in that statement that the Lakers are a little bit stressed out about the situation. I don't think they truly believe that Luka is not going to extend and then opt out next offseason to become a free agent, but I don't think they feel it is a 1,000% foregone conclusion that Luka will sign the extension. So if they don't believe it's 1,000% likely he's going to sign an extension, then I do understand why they would be a little bit uneasy, considering they traded Anthony Davis and some other players to get Doncic from the Mavericks. So let's take a look at if Miami could absolutely get Luka to the 305. Well, you have to start by looking at the cap situation for the Heat, not this season, but the year after. So these are the 8 players that are guaranteed to be under contract right now for the 26-27 season. Adebayo's extension kicks in at $49.6 million. Hero is on the last year of his contract right now at $33 million. Andrew Wiggins has a player option at $30.1 million, but the only other players under contract are the Davion Mitchell extension at $12.4 million, and then rookie contracts in Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kel'el Ware, Kasper Siakachonis, and Paul Larson. So when you add up all of those contracts, it is actually underneath the 2026 NBA cap projection. Right now, if you see a 7% increase in the cap from 25 to 26, which is what it was from 24 to 25, many people believe $165 million would ultimately be the cap space for that year. And if you look at where Miami would ultimately be, well, it is a good thing for the Heat. Like I mentioned, you add up all of those 8 contracts that we just showed, it is $141.6 million, which would give Miami $23.4 million in cap space. That does not give them the ability to have a supermax contract. That does give them a lot of opportunity, though, to give out pretty solid size contracts. And they've got $23.4 million in space, but they'd have like $60 million in first apron space and about $50 million in luxury tax space. So they would have a lot of abilities to make moves. But if you're able to have no Andrew Wiggins, which means you either trade Wiggins this offseason or trade Wiggins this season to where he does not have that $30 million on the books and he has other expiring contracts, or let's just say Miami doesn't have that money. Well, now it comes down to $111.5 million if you take Andrew Wiggins off, which would give you $53.5 million in cap space. Well, guess what? If you do not have Andrew Wiggins on your books for 26-27 and you have just those other 7 players, Miami would have enough space to offer Luka Doncic a max contract. In NBA free agency, if Luka doesn't extend and opts out of his contract, he could sign a maximum deal of 4 years, 219.4 in NBA free agency with a different team. It would have a $51 million cap hit in the first season. You do some quick math there. The Heat had $53.5 million if they didn't have Andrew Wiggins. So they would be underneath the required amount by $2.5 million to offer Luka Doncic that contract extension or that contract in NBA free agency. Something that Miami would absolutely love to do. We're talking about a player here that is top 5 in the NBA. He is, without a question, one of the biggest offensive juggernauts that we have ever seen in the entire NBA's history. Like, you just simply don't find a player that consistently averages 28 points a game, 9 rebounds, and about 8 assists a night. While shooting, by the way, 45% from the field and above 35% from 3. I mean, this is just an unbelievable offensive talent that we probably will not see again for a very long time. Like, he is more offensively gifted than LeBron James at his peak, than Michael Jordan at his peak, and I'm really meaning that. Like, I know it's like different leagues and inflation and numbers go up, but the way he is able to create for himself and teammates while being an efficient scorer is just second to none. You do everything in your power to make Luka Doncic a real possibility if you get the even slightest reasoning to believe he could opt out and become a free agent. If you feel like you have a chance, you get rid of Andrew Wiggins. You create the cap space you believe is necessary to offer Luka Doncic a max contract. Would he sign with you? It is not guaranteed, but you at least have to throw your hat in the ring when this type of player could potentially become available on the free agent market. So be honest with me. I'm going to give you my number here in a second. Percent chance the Heat sign Luka Doncic in free agency next offseason. Let me hear your numbers. -3%. Chose that number very carefully. You might know why. But you heard me. I think it's a 10% chance he even doesn't sign an extension. So if you factor in 10% chance he doesn't extend, and then you have to factor in him having to opt out of his player option, it just becomes very, very unlikely. And it's a low number because I doubt he becomes a free agent. But I'll say this. If Luka Doncic is an unrestricted free agent in 2026 and Miami had the cap space to offer a max deal, I truly believe the Heat would be the number 1 team Luka Doncic would want to go to. And I have reason to believe, based off what we've heard in the past, that he would then sign with Miami. I mean, you just go back to February 3rd of this year. Kevin O'Connor says one of the 2 teams that's long been rumored as his potential destination if he were to ever leave Dallas, it was always the Los Angeles Lakers and Miami Heat. Always Lakers and Heat. For years, that's what it's been. I've always heard Luka loves the weather in Miami. He loves the franchise. And I've talked to other people too, like Jeffrey Cooperstein, who obviously doesn't have inside sources with Luka Doncic, but he has always said, yeah, if Luka ever left Dallas, which he said he would never do, but that was never his choice, Nico Harrison traded him, he always believed he would come to Miami because he loves the city. It has a strong Slovenian presence, which is obviously where Luka is from, and he has a really good relationship with Goran Dragic, which, by the way, I know people have said this on Twitter before, get Goran Dragic to the front office as soon as possible. Like, this is one of your franchise legends, number 7, and he would love to be in the Heat front office, I'm pretty sure. So if you get him there, who Luka and Goran have an unbelievable relationship, you could potentially have another ear in Luka, or another voice in Luka's ear about potentially getting to Miami, relationship with Bam, Goran, his affinity for the city and the organization. I do think if he was a free agent, it would be a legit possibility. That'll do it for today's episode. Appreciate everybody who is hanging out with us here at the Heat Report. If you are not subscribed, what are you doing? Change that right now. You're still watching. You like what we're bringing to the table, so join the channel today.